And we've got two people who I think are uniquely qualified to talk to us about it. I think maybe the best way to kick this off is just a brief introduction, yourself, your business, and I'd love to just get a sense of the scale, how many countries you cover, or the number of records you have, just to give people some perspective. And Samir, if you wanted to kick it off.
Sure. So Samir Jagetia, Chairman President of REDBOOKS. We're a sales and competitive intelligence tool that's focused on advertising and marketing. So probably think of D&B, but deep into a vertical of advertising. Our scale is about 25,000 companies, so we're focusing in on all the largest brands across the world and all the ad agencies. So because the ad agency world is so global, that's why we have global data. So the ad agencies roll up into about 4 holding companies, and 2 of them are, one's based in Paris, one's based in London.
Huh.
And so 40% of our ad agencies that we profile are international. I don't have the exact numbers for how many countries of data we have. It's probably somewhere between, I guess, 70 to 100.
That's pretty good. And the company itself has been around for a long time, hasn't it?
The company's been around since 1899.
Well, so you've got a little bit of experience. Second employee, right?
Exactly.
John, well.
Okay, so I'm John Nicodemo from Dun & Bradstreet, D&B.
You're the guys with the DUNS numbers, right?
Yeah, we're the ones with the DUNS numbers, so pretty popular discussion topic in the last session. And although a lot of people think this, I have not been with D&B since it began in 1841. But I've been with D&B a very long time. I'm currently in a role where I'm global and responsible for discovering new assets, trying to curate them into the D&B infrastructure and helping D&B to synthesize and deliver value back to our customers.
And roughly how many records would you?
So I don't know what the latest is now, but somewhere north of 240 million businesses in over 200 countries.
Okay, so you're not doing it entirely by yourself.
Yeah, no, not entirely by myself. Actually, D&B relies quite a bit on our worldwide network of partners in many organizations. You know, it's, as you can imagine, you heard a little bit about what Chris was talking about with open corporates. It's very difficult to get content around the globe, especially in our space for business-to-business customers. And the partner model has worked very effectively with D&B. We have some of the best partners in the world. We have Bisnode, for example, covers much of Europe, and Informa and CRIF and a number of other very well-known business-to-business providers. So they're all part of the D&B worldwide network.
Great. Well, what we have here, and the reason I think this is going to be such a great panel, is we've got your broad scale. You really want everyone, essentially, right?
Right.
And you are type vertical. You want only certain types of companies.
Yeah, exactly.
But
we're both global.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And it's got to be different challenges. You got scale issues. You got all sorts of things you have to worry about. Really, one of the reasons I thought this panel would be so interesting is a lot of data publishing in the United States is still for the United States, and there's a lot of publishers saying, "I know I need to go global."
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, but the question is how. I mean, it really is such a huge change in mindset in your operations, the scale of your business. And there's tons of questions surrounding it. So that's sort of what I'd like to sort of dig into today, is get the advantage of your own experience, your own approaches, your own techniques, but also if you could help the audience, because I know there's more than a few people here who said, I really need to be thinking about this, and give, hopefully everyone can leave with some tips and tricks and ideas and maybe lessons learned too. So that's really the way I'd like to structure this session. So maybe the best way, if we could talk a little bit about your existing data collection practices, how do you do it? I mean, where would somebody start if they wanted to go beyond the United States?
And if someone wants to go beyond the U.S., I think the decision even starts before the data collection. I think the decision starts, what's the goal of it? Am I trying to serve domestic customers with global data, or am I trying to serve international customers with international data? So it's a different mindset. It's data's only, I think you mentioned this yesterday, as good as the value it provides to customers. So kind of having that mindset of who's my target is a big piece. If you're serving international customers with international data, it's going to be more complicated, but it could be very valuable. The second question, the second topic is there a management commitment to it? It's not something that's going to be done in 1 quarter or even half a year. It's something that takes,
not for the faint-hearted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time. I mean, it's something where you keep building on and you keep learning how to collect this data. So, you know, say if the cost per update starts at X, you don't want that to stay at X. You want that to come down every year. And that's kind of where you think about cost curves with going with international data.
Yeah, yeah. And John, you had already mentioned you have a partner network. Is that
Yes,
your
we have
secret sauce, or is that just piece of a larger?
Yeah, so the partner network is, they follow a lot of the D&B data governance and rules. So we lay out what it is that we'd like them to do, what kind of service that we'd like to deliver. But, you know, the one point I want to go back to that Samir brought up, because it's a very important one, is what's the problem we're trying to solve? Who are your customers? What are they trying to do? For a U.S. multinational, a global asset is very, very important. Something that helps them use that content globally to all of their constituencies around the globe. So having something that's a global semantic to them is very important. So having all the content look and feel somewhat similar. And that's what Samir was talking about. Now, if you want to do business in a market, you have to make some decisions about why and how you'll play. So for D&B, where we've made decisions to play is where we have a strong risk business, and it's something that we want to own in that marketplace. So we have some assets that we own around the globe. So in the UK, in Canada, in Benelux, in those markets, and in China, in the very, very important markets for our customers and for our business, we have a local presence of our own. In other markets where there are better businesses, there are better credit businesses, to be quite frank, or sales and marketing businesses, we will go to a partnership.
Okay.
So our plan, is always, find the best data and the best business-to-business data, and bring it to bear for global customer use, and in the markets where we play for the local customer use.
Interesting. Well, you brought it up, so I'm going to ask you, but this notion of who are you building the data for? Do you
Very important.
Maybe we can talk about what you're doing in particular, but then we can talk about it more generally. Is it smart? Is it ever smart to say, I'm a U.S.-centric publisher, I want to go global, I'm going to build a global database for my U.S. customers? Is that ever correct, given the costs involved? Or
it definitely is. It's, as John mentioned, a lot of our customers are MNCs. They do business over the globe, so they need that information.
Okay.
So I think it definitely makes sense. The trick, if you do want to sell internationally, I think you need feet on the street.
Interesting.
I think you can collect global data from the U.S. I know that for a fact. To sell internationally, I think you need people in those local markets that know the players there. It's too difficult to do that remotely or from another country.
I'd say that's true if you're trying to do business or if you're trying to collect content in a marketplace. Same concept. It's those relationships you build, very, very important.
Yeah, that's interesting. And when we talk about this global normalization, if you will, this idea that there are people, is it only the largest companies that see the value of this, something that's normalized across the globe, or is that something that a smaller business can find benefit in too?
Definitely smaller businesses can find benefits. The world is shrinking.
The beauty of the internet.
Yeah.
It's, we sell into a lot of companies that they sell advertising solutions. The solutions are applicable to any company in Europe, any company in Asia, and just as easy to implement as people down the street from them.
Interesting.
Small business is critical. You talk about Chris's prior presentation on corporates. Corporates are very, very important, obviously, but there's many corporates around the globe that never actually create commerce or actually open their doors. The U.S. is a great example. We have registries that are state-based, and many of those businesses, they're just for legal purposes. Right. They're never really conducting business. He also brought up the point of, when is a business a business? Russell, you and I could be a business.
Right.
You're a smart guy. Let's start a business.
Yeah.
I've got $5. We have a business. So when are we a business? Is it now because we just said we were a business? Or is it sometime down the road when we maybe get Samir as a client? Are we then a business? But wait, what if we never actually, no money ever exchanged hands? Are we then a business still? When are we a business? So those are the challenges you run into. And, you know, it's not just about the reference data that you collect, the data about businesses. It's actually the data that Sameer's company looks at. It's the actual content attached to the business that shows the activity and what's going on. One of the challenges that we've run into with things like open corporates, many markets around the globe, the data is already free. We get it for free too. And you know, it's very easy to get a country and download their whole registry. But what do you do with it? How do you keep it maintained? How do you assign SIC codes? How do you know how big the business is? How do you assign scale? Is it an important business? You won't know that without actual content that runs alongside it or attaches to it. And that's what we've been focused on. And our traditional data collection model was a very transactional, one-off investigation. And we still have that business, but we're really shifting much more to using data like that Open Corporates is using, and using content from our partners, from our customers, and using that to help better maintain data around the globe. And our customers, they don't just care about the corporates, they care about the ones. I have customers who say if they're a business and they have electricity, they're a customer. So many of those businesses never register or are required to register with a company, with a country.
Right, that's interesting. And as we talk about globalization and who the customer is, one thing that comes to my mind is things like localization or translation issues. Is English really the international language of business? Do you need to think about multiple languages?
I don't know,
Definitely, but you need to think about other languages. That obviously increases the complexity. You know, we've been mostly English-centric right now, mostly because we can't QA other languages. So we don't have people that could read Mandarin or other languages, so it's tough for us to maintain quality with it. One of the things we're actually exploring with it, there's a really interesting technology called Moses, which does machine translation on a statistical basis. So it's, you know, we're exploring using that technology to translate articles from foreign languages to English and be able to process it through our same engine to extract data.
Huh. I had an interesting experience many years ago at AT&T. This goes back a ways. For no apparent reason, someone on their board had gotten a license to publish a directory of all the businesses in China. And they were like, I mean, this is going to be the biggest opportunity on earth. And they knew that they wanted to do it in both languages, in English and Mandarin. So they're getting all this data in Mandarin. They had no idea what to do with it. So they went over to Bell Labs, and they have all these engineers on. They worked on it for 2 years.
A lot of smart people at Bell Labs.
With some really good software and pumped this thing out, and they were able to translate. And they came out with this 11-volume set of businesses. And then they discovered that that exclusive license they had wasn't so exclusive. every ministry in China was giving out its own license. So there were 15 people competing in the market, and they spent millions and millions of dollars. But you get a sense of the challenge of it, and it gives me a sense of the scale of what you're working with. And you break into these new markets, and you have no idea of how businesses are organized or how they relate to each other, and then you have a language barrier on top of it. Right. Is some of the challenges, is that where the feet on the street really start to make the difference for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sameer had brought up the fact that translating is not just, do I understand what this says? You need to understand its context. And, you know, I'm not a linguistics expert. There are people at D&B that are very, very good with this. But there's a lot to it's more than just translating. So some of the things that we've learned in dealing, like, say, with Russian data, if you translate it literally, it'll say something like the factory in Minsk. And it's really, it's just the way the business is described as opposed to what its trading name is. That's just not heard of, you know. So you need to factor those things in. So yes, absolutely, having the local knowledge and those local relationships is very, very important, because it's very easy to make some big mistakes very easily. So it is an example of what you described at AT&T.
Yeah. These partners, and you're working with them extensively, are they companies that do that for a living, or are they industry specific and you just happen to be a good fit with you, or are they?
They are all in our industry.
Okay.
They're all in the credit business. You know, so I think all of our partners are of like mind. You know, the more free that the data can be, the better, because it's really about creating value for the customer. And that content, I mean, every one of the businesses that are in this show are providing value to content. And if I asked any of you if your content could be free, I'm sure that a lot of you would say, yeah, hell yeah. It's really about the services you deliver to the customer. You know, so
that's interesting. Samir, you've got a fairly deep record on the companies. You know a lot about their advertising.
Yeah, so we're focusing on their.
I mean, how do you build up a record? Getting the basic company information is getting easier. It's not easy, but it's getting easier. I mean, is it primary research? Are you making contact with them?
Exactly. It's a lot of primary research, and it's the trick is there's no one way that will get you all the data.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of self-reporting. Since the company's been around for over 100 plus years, we're lucky that we have those relationships where they send us data. We do a lot of phone calls, a lot of web research, and then we've been relying a lot on automation. So that's the key to get just be able to scale data a lot more efficiently. So we use a combination of all four things and segment the different pieces of data based on what's worked in the past and how we expect it to work in the future.
I mean, can you both of you talk more about automation tools? I mean, it's a very hot topic here in the room, and anything that's working for you, anything you've tried that hasn't worked, or any bumps along the road you might want to alert people to.
Yeah, so one of the automation tools we're using is we're tracking news across the globe. Mm-hmm. So we're following 65,000 plus news stories or news publications all the time on a minute-by-minute basis. So we're putting that through a machine learning engine and natural language processing engine. So we're using that to extract anytime someone's mentioned in the news. It helps us get our content, update our content, and we know Russell Perkins is speaking at the BIMS conference. It lets us validate that stamp. It also lets us put it on our record. So if someone's trying to reach out to you, they know exactly the context. So that's an automation tool that it's all in the back end, gets fed to our editorial team, they do a quick review, and they're able to push. Obviously, not everybody's in the news.
Right.
So we have other strategies for levels of people that don't make it to the through these news releases.
Got it. I imagine you've seen it all, tried it all.
Well, we've tried a lot of things. There's this thing called the internet that
I've heard of that.
Yeah. So the one thing I would say there is to be very careful, especially if you're going global. Where you get data from is very important versus where you actually go to market with it. And you need to be careful about any content collected in market and trying to move it out of the market. Mm-hmm. But if I had to talk about some of the tech, we have spent a lot of effort in doing what we call identity resolution. So there's literally all kinds of content freely available. There's all kinds of content that can be purchased, and being able to make sense of it and identify the identity of the business entity. And some of our improvements and some of the development we're doing from a technology perspective has been on people. So people, though, in the context of the business. So Samir is the CEO. REDBOOKS, well, he should be the CEO of REDBOOKS. What kind of content? What's being said about Samir? What's being said about his business? Who are the other businesses that he's interacting with? Being able to identify that and associate with all the other content that D&B collects. The other area where we've done a lot of patent pending activity is on analytics. So we have started to use analytics to predict, to do all the things D&B has done traditionally, predicting business outcomes, specific business outcomes, but also now moving towards creating that globally and being able to predict changes in businesses. And in my specific world, in the discovery and curation of content, it's really about using analytics to be able to find inaccurate data and accurate data and be able to maintain it. So a simple example, you go to a registry for a country, you download the registry, you then drag all of your activity-based content against it, then you apply analytics to say, okay, what is this telling me? Is this telling me this business is still operating? Is it not operating? If it is operating, is it still operating at this phone number with this address, or has something happened? Has something started to change? So that's where we've concentrated a lot of our efforts over the last couple of years.
That's interesting. Have either of you used or had any opinion on things like user-generated content? Is that something you may have, you have tried, you may think about in the future, or would you just say stay away from it?
It's something we're thinking about. Is probably not for our core content base, but it's more an enhancement that's to the side that people know is user-generated. It's something we've explored. We haven't done anything with yet.
So we've looked at it. We've done probably 24 tests. We know there's a use for it. The thing that we've learned is a lot of the principles of putting content together still apply for user-generated content. You still need to have in the user content world, there's things like plurality. In the old days, we called it quality assurance. It's like, okay, do two people agree that this piece of data is correct? But you still have the same basic principles of managing inventory of work, managing motivation of the workers, very closely managing the whole process. And the effort to do that is non-trivial, at least from the testing that we've done. I also think that a lot of the user content needs to be very simple. Any more than 3 clicks or anything that's going to disenfranchise or unmotivate people, you're not going to get what you need. So,
right.
That being said, I know there's a place. I know that I've seen applications where it's being very effectively used.
One thing that interests me, and it's a big issue just in domestic data, but it's got to be multiplied when you're thinking globally, is that the really good databases are ones that are reasonably comprehensive. But you've got, I think the issue is a vertical, and you've got the issue is wanting to do everything.
Right.
How do you know if you got most of it? I mean, do you ever know? And is this an issue with your clients? I mean, because if you're going to do market share and things like that and sell that analytics kind of layer, you have to be reasonably confident about, do I have most of it? Do I have some of it? Do I have all of it? I mean, A, is that a challenge? And B, how do you think about that?
That's a really good question.
The answer is yes, and that will explain why.
So there's a couple ways that we think about it. One is a lot of these ad agencies, they all roll up to the same company. So it's a little bit easier to have an idea of what's my coverage of all their offices across the globe. And, that gives us a good proxy of what we need, and especially what our clients care about. So they may not care about the 2-person agency in India. That may not be their target. They may care about the WPP office that's out there. The second piece is that we have search logs. We know what people are searching for and looking for.
Interesting.
And so we can always go back and, we kind of see where the trends go with that and be able to add records accordingly.
You skate to where the puck's going to be. He's looking for this, quick, over here.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. For us, it's a constant challenge. I can't tell you how many salespeople, and some of them are in the room, that are constantly chasing me to go into verticals, like advertising or whatever, and it's just not something that we do. We've created this new capability. We call it the D&B Data Exchange. It gives us an opportunity to make available, that's for you, Ronak, gives us an opportunity to make available content and tie it to our DUNS number, the infamous DUNS number, so that our customers can get value. D&B, a lot of companies like Samir's, they want to do business with big customers or D&B customers, and our sales team members want to enable that. So one of the ways we can do that is through something like that. In terms of being able to find the businesses that our customers want, it's a constant challenge. We have ways. We keep track of what's of customer interest. We look at its trending. Are we able to constantly meet the demand and the requests for content? And what we always have to be careful of is that customers sort of bias and say, well, I know I'm not going to find it at D&B. I'll go somewhere else first. So that is something we always have to weigh with whatever we're trying to do in terms of having census coverage. Our goal is to have census coverage of every operating business in the world. Not easy.
Yeah.
It says easy, does hard. We have probably 24 markets where we have pretty much census coverage, better than most any other company. And then we have a bunch of markets where we have pretty much what's freely available. And then we have other markets that we service through demand. So in those markets, we absolutely have what customers want, But for the analytic piece, to your point, Russell, is that you need to have even what they don't know they want. So you need to have every business if you're trying to do analytics, and that's where we're headed. That's what we're trying to do now.
Interesting. And sort of a related question on that, and I grew up in the old print directory days, and one of the most wonderful parts about that business was you'd send someone the directory, and you'd say, well, you go back and do a customer satisfaction. They said, well, it's not very accurate, and I tried, and most of it doesn't work, but it's a really hard job, so it's okay. And you're doing this on a global scale. Do your customers cut you any breaks because you're doing something else?
Do they cut us any? No, they shouldn't either. They're facing, a software company comes into D&B and says, gee, every year I have to lower my price on my software to my clients. D&B, why should I spend more with you? Constant challenge, constant challenge. Yeah.
Same for us. They expect it to be right, and I don't blame them. I mean, that's
perfect and global and up to date.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the other one is the continuous updating. Every record's checked every 5 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're all like, Chris Taggart says it's free. Why is it?